LIR.com, 927LIR.com, and YouTube. I am John Kalaboukas, the Bouk, with my friend Paul Zubulake. Zoobie. So before we start, we would like to apologize for last week's production of the show. Our engineer / producer was in Europe, and we tried to do it on our own, and these are the results. So we really apologize. It will look much better and sound much better than last week.
Yes, John. First rules of having a pod is making sure you have a backup for your producer and it's not yourself. So as John said, sorry about that. Sorry to Walter, our great guest. I thought the content was still good, so I was still happy that we put the show out. We appreciate people watching us on a weekly basis. Our picks maybe did not. I mean, I got to speak for myself because John probably did a lot better than I did, and Walter took it on the chin. So I joked with Walter, John, that because of the lack of production, many people maybe didn't watch, so they
maybe they didn't have a clear hearing of what he was saying, because I was just thinking about him with some of his picks. I'm like, oh, Walter absolutely got destroyed on his picks last week. I mean, we all missed on Kentucky. I mean, that's one thing we had in common. We all missed on Kentucky.
John, it's so funny. That's a good place to start when it's talking about March Madness. It's better than my team. I'll get to them later, but your poor team has more ammo that they obviously should have been participating. But the Kentucky game, you really did see the reality of John Calipari's inability to coach in a big game. And I even have kind of been giving him a pass over his career, but he literally stood around and watched that, he lost to a team who basically played this crap zone on defense and had a guy go off from three and then they go home. There's no way that team should have been eliminated in the first round. And their point guard, Reed Shepherd, he did kind of choke up. He's a freshman. That's what happens, John, right? Freshmen. Yeah. A lot of stories about freshmen in this tournament. I think that's kind of the story. That's at least my story. The freshmen just not coming up big and thinking they're ready for the NBA, and they should be going back to school and refining their craft. What do you think?
Well, Calipari has been the one and out coach. I mean, how many of his players just leave after 1, maybe 2 years at the most? So,
yeah, well, they do run the program that way. It's another big storyline, right? The one and done is a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah. But the other thing, I mean, the big story in this tournament, and I know I'm going to beat a dead horse here, how St. John's, how Providence, how Seton Hall were not included in this tournament. Because when I look at these teams, and I made a list, and you tell me if any of those teams from the Big East could have done better than these teams. So right, I have a very...
They have to be at-large teams. You can't give me Wagner. We know that those teams that get the automatic bids.
Yeah, but I want to include them because the way this should be run, and I said it last week, is it has to be the 68 best teams. If you're from a crap conference and you barely get over 500, and just because you ended up winning a conference, I'm sorry. That does not qualify you for this. I'm going to read off the names.
Okay, no, but let's stop there before you start. That's a great point, because that is the real story, because you are in favor of a two-tier tournament now going forward, and I agree with you on this. You've got to, instead of expanding the field, you keep it, you get it back to 64. You make some of these smaller conferences ineligible for the final 64. They all play in their own tournament. Call it the division, you don't have to say Division II, 1AA like they used to do it. Even in football, they keep on changing the acronyms, but the idea is you have, right, the small schools play for the championship. It's better for them, and it's better for schools like on the bubble, like St. John. So that you go through the teams, but I just want the audience to understand these teams are automatically in, so you should separate.
No, I know.
Okay.
But like or let them go to the NIT, because that's where all these teams belong, to be honest.
Well, you could call it the NIT too. That's another story, right?
So we had Northwestern, Utah State, Longwood, Wagner, Grambling, Duquesne, James Madison, which, by the way, Duquesne and James Madison did pull off the upsets.
Yes, they did.
I had two upsets that actually came through. Virginia, which they were a complete embarrassment, 14 points at the half. That was a joke.
That was awesome.
Stetson, Colgate, Moorhead, St. Peter's, and Akron. Come on now. Do you think any of these teams could have done better than the three teams from the Big East? I would even throw Villanova in as a fourth team from the Big East that would have done better than these teams.
Okay. Point made. You're right. But the thing is, that's ultimately leads to a two-tier tournament, which would be bad. It would be great for Moorhead State to play Vermont for the championship instead of getting blown out in the first round. So I think the kids who are playing, they'll deal with that. It's like, but it's always about that miracle, John, right? UMBC over Virginia.
But look at
there hasn't been many, but
look at these conferences. Look at these conferences that had 8 teams. 8.
Yeah.
And you had the Big 12. 2 of them are in the 16.
Yeah.
The SEC, 2 out of 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Big 10, 2 out of 6. Mountain West, 1 out of 6. And then you got the Big East, 3 for 3, baby. 3 for 3.
Right. But if they had all 6, they may have been 3 and 3.
I bet they would have all been in there still.
Well, I understand, John. But so the way it looks, there's no doubt the Big East got screwed. I agree with you. We talked about this last week. I totally agree. And St. John's wasn't even close. We talked about.
They weren't even close.
They weren't even close. So it's a good year for this to happen. Let's see what happens from here on out, because the way it could work is that you say, okay, I agree, only 2 Big 12 teams are in, but what happens if Iowa State and Houston go to the championship game? So it's a little early to get too crazy about the conferences. Now, if UConn and Marquette get to the championship game, man, oh man, you're going to be, I might not show up for that episode.
By the way, you mentioned Houston. I wanted to ask you a question about that game.
Any question? Yes.
Okay.
Now that I'm an expert.
Because they almost blew that game, okay? I mean, they were up, I think, by 10 or 12 with like 2 minutes to go. And they hit that miraculous shot at the buzzer to go into overtime. When does the clock start? I always thought, because they inbounded the ball, it hit the floor, and then it hit the kid's hand, and that's when the clock started. Is it when someone touches it, or when does it hit the ground?
Touch. The touch.
It's touch. Okay.
Hey, it's
the same way in the NBA, but I said to myself, is there a college rule here or something? Because, all right.
Yeah, there's been no
it took a long time for that clock to start, but then.
Well, that's another story. That's home cooking on clock. Does the clock actually have the tenths of a second, right? So some of the all the professional arenas have that, but if you're playing one of these games in a non-professional, they may not have the tenths of a second. So it's a little less. You don't know exactly how much time. I don't think there's been any. I have to admit, I haven't seen every game. I'm the type of guy, when my team goes down, I go down with it, and I'm in like depression. I can't.
Wow. Worst game of the year I have, because I've watched a couple of Baylor games this year.
Right.
Some of those crazy overtime games.
Right.
That had to be one of the. It was the worst game of the year for them. They were awful. I mean, that team. The announcers were absolutely driving me crazy. Because that was not clamped down defense. They had open shots, open layups. They said, what a great defense. They were amazing. No, it was not. There was no way that was a great defense.
Yeah,
they just played a terrible game. They were sloppy. I was getting pissed off. I was getting pissed off for you because I kept turning to Stella. I said, I can imagine what Paul's going through watching this mess.
Well, what happened was, I'll tell you what happened. After it was in the second half, Clemson, the center, he's tripping down. He's falling on the ground. He throws the ball over his head. He gets fouled, and he banks it in. And it was 15 points, right? I think they were up by 15. John, I turned the TV off. I took the dog for a walk. I'm across this. I go across the street in my property by my house. I check the phone. They're down by 6. I'm like, what the heck just happened? First of all, I'm a terrible fan, obviously, but that's how I felt. I was so disgusted. Of course, I get back. It's still a 6-point game. They literally could have tied it with 30 seconds to go. And our great freshman, and that's one of the themes I want to talk about, Jacoby Walter, who's a lottery pick, according to everybody. My wife fails to agree, but that's another story. And he misses 2 free throws that would have tied the game. He shot 12, I think, from the line, and he's like 84% or 82 or something.
Yeah.
Choked it away. Yeah. So anyway, nobody cares, John. Nobody cares.
They missed 10. I think they missed 10 or 11 foul shots
early. What?
They missed 10 or 11 foul shots in that game too.
They missed, John. This is one that drives me. Everybody should watch this. To me, such a little thing, but a big thing. When the teams have 1-and-1s, how do they do? They only can do 3 per half. It could be less if it's a shooting foul. So once you get past 7, right, you go 1-and-1. They miss 3 1-and-1s in the second half. It's 6 points. Opportunity cost. They were good free throw shooters who did it. Complete collapse. Way too much Baylor content, man. I got the woman. The woman got to the Sweet 16. I'm on their bandwagon. Any great college fan gets on any bandwagon that's winning, they'll be out. I don't know what's going to happen there. But anyway, enough of them. So, so I was devastated after that game. So I did miss a lot of games. And obviously, I'll be watching all the Sweet 16 on in.
Yeah, I mean, the one that that they missed the call was with Samford. That was an awful call. I mean, they played a great game. I said, wow, they're actually they have a chance to win this game. And they made a great comeback.
Did you pick that as an upset?
I did. I said Samford was going to go. I said Samford was going to beat them in Gonzaga. So almost.
Yeah, I almost too did, John. I had Texas A&M over Houston. Of course, they lost in OT, and Michigan State, Carolina. I had that one. At Michigan State, I looked like a genius after 10 minutes, and then they absolutely got destroyed. So there you go. So luckily, because of the bad production, my picks, Walter's picks, nobody's going to know, John. So any more thoughts on college hoop before we move on? Because there's so much in the tri-state area to talk about, right? I mean, we got some hot teams. We got some fun coming up and start a baseball season. So is this technically, we'll get to that later with Bouk, baseball with Bouk, of course. But we could even, where do you want to shift? And we got NFL too, right? We got everything.
Yeah. I mean, why don't we go to let's go to the NFL. We'll keep baseball with Bouk towards the end. Mm-hmm. Because something will be missing, and we promised the fans. We promised the fans.
Yes, anyway, we'll get to them later. So yeah, NFL. We'll talk Jets, right? Robert Saleh and Woody Johnson, Captain Chaos, and
Captain Chaos.
To the media, the Jet fans out there, the young ones. I don't blame them. They want to spin everything optimistic. That's okay. I was on this show a few weeks ago, right? We didn't really talk about it last week because of college hoops we wanted to talk about. I said it was malfeasance, right? They hurt us, right? Not that they're watching us, but they hurt us. So they have made some moves. They've made some good moves. They've made moves that are catered to 1 year. There's a high risk moves everywhere, and everybody knows the situation, right? So the good news is, they have bodies on the offensive line. They still should look to draft there. I'm sorry. This is like one of these drafts that has offensive tackles like no other year. How in the world you don't get one? You got to get one. So they're still in that situation. And they're just trying to make the fans forget last year and talk about uniforms, right? That's the next thing, I guess, what the emblems coming back out. I mean, that's what this, unfortunately, under Captain Chaos is all about, right? It's always about the next marketing thing, not about. And again, no playoff mandate. And Saleh, is it a fair? They set him up, right? They asked him, if you don't make the playoffs, is it a failure? That's such a setup question. And of course, he says he doesn't. he doesn't have to make the playoffs. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that is very funny. What I think what was funnier is Johnson trying to up the value of Zach Wilson by saying, "Well, if we don't get the right trade for him, we're keeping him." Love that one.
Uh,
I wonder if he cleared that with Douglas when he said that.
He doesn't clear much with Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas is a nice guy. I think he does know what he's doing. The thing is, he doesn't have time. His coach is still suspect. Hopefully, they just shut everybody up, John. So I'm going to be fired up, but I'm going to wait until September to get fired up. I'm not going to be like talking about it too much. I mean, we'll talk about the draft, obviously, and what they're going to do. So we'll save it for that. So you always got to talk a little Jets when we got in the news, but otherwise. I mean, the Giants, I guess, have been it's just really draft talk and this, not that we talk a lot of college football, but the J.J. McCarthy stuff I find fascinating. The kid who played at Michigan, won a national championship, is a solid player. Somebody's going to make, in my opinion, a huge mistake drafting this guy high. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but I would never draft him in the top 10. That's a big storyline. Will the Giants take a quarterback?
Yeah. And, one other thing that came up, I think it was yesterday, is all these rule changes. I don't know.
That's another good subject. Yep.
Yeah. So they're definitely banning the hip drop tackle, which I don't know how they're going to enforce this. I mean, these are split second ruling. How are you going to be able to? I didn't understand that one.
That's awful.
The other thing is, which I agree with, they give you an additional challenge. If you get one right out of the two, you get a third one now.
Is that what they're doing? Okay, I did not know that. Okay.
And, all right. But the last thing is the new way of doing kickoffs. Did you hear about this?
Is that official though? Is it official?
The owners voted on it.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I honestly have not been following that.
All right. Well.
Tell me about it. I want to know.
Okay, so just to let everyone that's listening and watching know, last year only 22% of the kickoffs were actually taken out of the end zone. So now the NFL is trying to get more action into the game. So this is the way it's the kicker will be in the same spot. He's not moving. What they're doing is the team that's kicking it off, they can line up on the 40-yard line of the, let's say, the offensive team, the team that's getting the kickoff. So they're going on the 40-yard line. The team that's getting the kickoff is on the 35-yard line. So they're only 5 yards apart. And then they have like this zone from the 20-yard line to the end zone. If the kick falls in that zone, the guy takes it out of there. Then once he touches the ball or the ball hits the ground, then they start running. They can't move before the ball hits the ground or goes into the what is it? The guy that's getting the ball. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought.
Returner?
The returner. Thank you. By the way, they're going to allow 2 returners on the field at the same time.
All right, let's. I gotta pull this back. I'm sure the fans out there want to understand this. I hope you have this right, John. So you're telling so what has happened? The NFL, they moved the kickoff from the 30 back to the 35. They used to even kick it off from the 40 back in the old days when they were all straight leg kickers. There was no soccer style, right? So they moved it all the way, ended up to the 30, and that's just where they should go back to. But so they have to make this complicated thing. So you're saying they're still going to kick off from the 35?
They're going to be by themselves.
Right.
Their team,
the opposing team is 5 yards
will be on the 40-yard line of the other team, and then the other team will be on the 35-yard line. So they're only going to be 5 yards apart from each other.
That's going to be like a rugby match? I don't understand. Where do they get that?
They're actually implementing what the XFL does. So
they do something
no
crazy.
one is allowed to move until the ball either hits the ground or goes in the the returner's arms.
Right, but what's going to stop the kickers from blasting it out of the end zone every time?
Well, that's okay.
Is that a penalty?
If if it goes out of the end zone, it goes automatically to the 40-yard line.
Oh, is that part of it? What? I missed all this. Oh my, where have I been?
40-yard line. If it falls short of the what they call the landing zone, like I said, from
Okay.
the
Goal
goal
line
line
to the
to the
20.
20-yard line,
Right.
it can go also to the 40-yard line if they decide not to touch it. They're trying to penalize you for not kicking it within the zone or kicking it totally out of the zone.
Okay, so if you pop it up to the 30, it could go to the 40. Is that what you're saying? Because it won't be in the zone. It would still go to the 40-yard line. Is that part
Yes,
of it?
that's correct.
Holy moly, is this official? I feel terrible. I don't know this. I've not been
Yeah,
talking.
no, they said that only 3 owners were against it. Only 3.
Right. No, but I just want the implementation. Like, when are they implementing it?
They're
That's
doing
why.
it this year,
Okay.
and they're going to review it after this year. If they like it, they're going to keep it. If they don't like it, they could remove it.
All right. I love it because they took one of the most exciting plays out of the game. So I'm
Yeah.
all in. I mean, just the drop tackle stuff is an absurdity. They're going to be throwing flags left and right because there's no way an undersized player can take down a physical receiver or tight end without doing that style of tackling. How are they going to get him down? They're going to try to chop him at their knees instead and probably cause more injuries. What the heck?
I don't know what
This guy's down.
with that hip drop tackle. I don't know what they're trying to say that they've had so many injuries because of it.
They have. But the thing is, when when the guy gets hurt and the intention of what the guy's doing, right? Because you could put more weight at the knee point and really cause injury with the drop tackle, right? And maybe they should just be penalizing and fining those guys who are doing it illegally. They shouldn't take it out of the game because how are you going to determine it in certain circumstances? And they're going to be throwing flags left and right. There's going to be
How are they going to be? I don't know how they're going to call the game. How are they going to call the game with this? How? It's a split second. It's a split second. What if you do it by mistake?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't like this rule at all.
I agree.
Kickoff I like, and the additional challenge I like. I like what they're doing with the kickoff.
I want to make every play challengeable. That's my goal. I don't, and then give them the extra challenge now and let them, and who cares what the call is? Everything should be challengeable. This concept of certain things are not challengeable, I just find absurd.
Yeah.
And if you use them up 3 times and you're done, it won't be that much of a difference. They're stopping it at least twice. There'll be 1 extra stop per game. You can't use it willy-nilly because you'll lose your challenges quick. So you're not going to challenge things. But if there's an egregious roughing the passer penalty, that's not a roughing the passer, you should be able to do that call. Why not?
Yeah, I hate the roughing the passer. It's such a joke.
But that's what I'm saying.
The time they're barely touching the guy.
Right.
I mean, it's almost like the flop in the NBA. They have the flop in the NFL now.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. If you can't review it, you can't enforce the bad officiating. So the guys won't throw the bad roughing the passer flags anymore because they know it's a challengeable call. And if he misses the call and it is roughing the passer, they'll overturn it and roughing the passer.
Right.
Really get the real roughing the passer. Why can't they do that, at least for roughing the passer? But if you just make it simple, every play is reviewable. You give each team 3. If you go 0 for 2, you're done. And if you're 1 for 1 now, they want to give you the 3rd. Okay, that's it. Case closed. Move on. And then make sure the officials get out of these replays quick. Now, they're killing college basketball with this stuff. It's absurd. Everything at the end of the game is reviewed. The end of these games are horrible. It really is painful to watch some of these games. You literally could fall asleep at midnight. Yeah. Some of these games are going to 1 a.m. Eastern, especially in the early rounds, right? And, you're falling asleep during the review.
Yeah, it's true. All
right, enough complaining. That's a lot of complaining. Let's talk fun. Let's talk good. Let's talk winning teams. winning teams at MSG. John, I'll let you go first. You got to be so happy. And I don't know, the bad news is there's some good news on the injury front with your boy Robinson, right? Coming back, our man Robinson, I should say. And what else? Go crazy. You're on a roll with the Knicks.
Well, Anunoby, it's funny we spoke about him, and if you remember, when I mentioned how he was dunking so hard when he came back, and it turned out that he aggravated it by dunking it. I knew when he slammed that ball down I said, why are you doing this right after you came back from it? And that's what aggravated it. He said,
right,
when I did that,
does he do the windmill, right? Doesn't he do like a kind of like a windmill?
yeah, it was one of those just crazy. And I'm like, you just came back. So he'll be back. Randall, he's taking his sweet time. They say he has some contact in the gym, but they're not saying when he's ready. So I don't know. He looks fine to me. I mean, I see some of his workouts online. He looks fine to me. He looks in great shape. But
John,
anyway,
they're being smart. They're holding him out. They're being smart. I mean, they're stuck at 4, right? They're still at the 4th spot.
They're only half a game out of the 3rd spot.
Now they're moving up, right? So
half a game.
Hit it though, right? What is the 9? I don't have. Yeah, we should look it up with the infamous because we were talking about it, right? They were like very close to dropping into the,
it's still
right?
pretty close.
It's still pretty close, right?
Together, but they're not that far away from the 2nd spot, which would be even. I mean, imagine that they get into the 2nd spot. Wow, that would be fantastic. And they did very well on that Western trip. I knew that, when they were playing Denver, they looked really tired. I mean, I was watching them. I was like, it's the last game of the road trip. They're in Denver with the high altitude. They hung in with Denver most of the game. I think they were only down by 5, like in the 4th quarter, and then they just ran them out of the gym after that. But,
right.
But no, they look. I mean, DiVincenzo.
Wow.
40 points last night. 11 3-pointers. I mean, he's playing. Listen. I liked him, but I didn't ever think he was going to play like this. I mean, he's been tremendous.
Of course.
And Josh Hart is always going to be. I mean, this guy flies all over the place. He's amazing. I love Josh Hart.
This is a likable team. This is a very likable team.
Yeah.
Because they're fighting through the injuries and they're getting contributions from the Prince and Hartenstein. Those guys are good players. Yeah. Robinson, it's going to have to fight for minutes, which will make him play better. So that's good. There's no bad thing with anybody coming back. It's all good. So
I have to say Hartenstein is a much better passer than Robinson. I would bring Robinson off the bench.
100%.
And don't let Hartenstein stay where he is. He is. Yes. And they need to re-sign him. I mean, the ironic thing out of all this is because he's getting all this extra playing time, he's going to command more salary. And so is Precious Achiuwa, who's, people don't realize he's only 24 years old. And
I called Precious Prince, right?
You did call him Prince, yes.
I renamed him. I'm sorry, Precious. But no, he's a good player. But you're right. He's unsigned too. So they're making a lot of money.
I want those guys to come back.
Right. Of course.
Burks will be a free agent. Clearly he's going.
Right.
And but they definitely need to sign those 2 guys.
Well, we'll say and I was thinking maybe we should do this on an annual basis. What time of year? I don't know how you do it, but it's like the tri-state area general manager of the year. And we would distinguish who's technically the general manager. It's a runaway. It's a runaway in this category in the tri-state. It is
Leon Rose, baby.
He is the GM of the year. And to make a little segue, the player of the year in the tri-state. Now it's because we're kind of, what season do you want to pick? I'm being a little biased. Baseball hasn't even started, and football, what year are we? Football doesn't happen, right? But Artemi Panarin is the New York Tri-State Player of the Year. The guy is having a tremendous season. And for the non-hockey fans and the non-Ranger fans, this is a guy who literally, I don't know if I personally blamed him last year, but he was one of the chief reasons why they lost in the first round was his lack of ability, to do anything in the playoffs last year. So the way he's playing, this is setting up, John, for either a glory year for the Rangers or a same old Rangers where they get to the playoffs and the game gets into a little tougher and grimier and grindier, that Panarin goes quiet again. That is a huge storyline as we head into the hockey playoffs.
Well, and they've been playing great. I mean,
and they're hurt all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, and you put that and you put the hex on the Islanders, man. They lost 6 in a row from the last time we spoke about them. They finally won a game, but Fireman Dan will be really upset with you because you were praising them and you put the Zuby hex on them.
I feel it's been rough. Yeah, it's been rough. It's so funny because I'm thinking about it right now. I'm like, wait a second. The Rangers are playing tonight, right? They're back in action. So we are. What day is the week, John? It's been rough. I have just so the fans know, I got a new job, and my job is not in the state of New Jersey, so I had to go to another state. And I've been back and forth, going out again next week. So good news for me. It helps pay for the bills, John.
Yeah. But the rain. Yeah. Well, it is Tuesday evening. It is almost Ranger time. So
so it is Tuesday. Yeah. So
and it is 7:15 Eastern Standard Time, not
right.
Not Texas time.
Yeah, so it's so funny because I have to do a little recording, I guess, because I'm not going to be able to watch this game. So maybe I'll give him better luck by now. I'll just catch the third period. So yeah, I'm trying to catch up on my watching of my team, John. But I know now it's all about the next season, right? So it really, these regular season games. I mean, it's just, if they lose more guys, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Good news is they're going to get back.
Both teams in MSG have a really good shot if they're healthy.
Yeah.
They have a really good shot this year. It might be 1994 all over again. I mean, I wish the Knicks would have won that year, but
who will ever forget it? Every night, and that's when and we've talked about this before, that's when the NBA and the NHL had their brains and not were some marketing machines where they had their games in the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA. They were actually playing at the same time, and they were one every other game, and they split it, right? The Rangers played on Monday, and the Knicks played on Tuesday, right, John? It was what a year, 1994. It was a crazy year for other things, but 1994 for New York in the winter sports. And the Knicks, you come up short. That's why it's so important when you get there. You got to win it. And the Knicks did not win. And that was also during the OJ stuff, was during that. Whoever forgot that. And the Rangers winning the cup, and they haven't won since. And the Knicks, John, it's 19. I think they put it in perspective out there for the Knicks.
The last time they had anything really meaningful, the last time they won the finals were 1999, actually, with that shortened season and
with the Spurs.
In Houston, they went on that run, and then we got clobbered by the Spurs.
Yeah, by the Spurs, right? Yeah, that was Sprewell. That was the Sprewell team, right?
Yeah.
So, so I can't wait, John. And that's so I'm if missing regular season games is at this point for both teams for me, it's like it doesn't matter. But the playoffs, we are going to be all over it. Hopefully, I'll have some guests, right, talking about at least the NHL playoffs. We hope that, and we actually have our NBA. Our good friend Gamal Smith is coming back. That is, I think we even booked him, right, John? Is that
we did? He's coming for the NBA preview of the playoffs.
Okay, great. I can't wait to talk to him again. It'll be his YouTube debut. And we should mention, as always, now that we are on youtube.com, Bouk and Zoobie, and you have to search the show, B-O-U-K and A-N-D and Zoobie, Z-O-O-B-I-E. And you got to do it right. Otherwise, the algo doesn't recognize us. Right, John?
Yeah.
And we're still on Spotify.com. And for both of these platforms, please subscribe. If you could, do us a favor, subscribe to the show, because then you get the automated downloads for both of those platforms. If you can like our episodes, fantastic. If you want to make a comment and make fun of our bad picks, feel free. And we really appreciate people watching the show, John, because I think we're getting a little bit of a following. And for everybody to know, it's a word of mouth program. And our radio station partners, LIR, right? The world famous LIR.com, right? LIR927.com, John, right? Is that it? As always, I'll mess those up, but we really appreciate the guys at the radio station being with us. And please, go to their sites and listen to the music. It's great stuff. So that's it. So baseball preview, we're kind of just going to talk about a lot of baseball in the next few weeks anyway. And then we'll have our draft coverage and our, winter sports stuff. So looking forward, John, every week is going to be something to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to be busy. And then you're going to have the NFL draft in a couple of weeks, too.
Yes. Yeah, that's the end of April now. Unfortunately, I've permanently put it in the back end of April. And now I don't even know what city it's in this year. But it's fun. I guess it's going to all these cities that never happens. New York, as New York likes to do. We like to keep the good things. And unfortunately, we're losing a lot of good things. So looking forward to that, John. So what else? Do you have any other tidbits you want to talk about? Non-tri-state area winter sports? Anything out there?
No, no, not much. No.
Not much?
Yeah, not much. There's not much going on.
All right. Well, I think it's probably that time because it's late March. Incredibly, and it was funny when I was traveling. I got up at like 7 o'clock in the morning Central Time, and I flick on the TV just as I'm getting ready to leave. And there's a baseball game going on. So it was their first Dodger game against the Padres. And then the next night, Yamamoto, my God, that's a debut to remember. So there's plenty to talk about. And it's the time for Baseball with Bouk.
Thanks, Paul. So, as promised, because there's something that you did not hear this time around. And why is that? Because the Bouk and Zoobie show promised that if the Mets obtain a DH, namely J.D. Martinez, we will put the Sanford and Son song away for good. And so that's why you are not hearing that. We did get, finally, after 1 year of pleading, we were pleading last year to get him. Now we're getting him a year later. We have J.D. Martinez as our DH. Pete Alonso finally has some protection. Finally, we're lengthening the lineup. And the contract was actually a very good contract. So the Mets ended up signing him for 1 year, $12 million. But they're only paying him $4.5 million this year. He has the rest of it, $1.5 million a year, deferred from the years 2034 through 2038. So really, with the hit to I keep calling it a salary cap, but again, they're getting hit with these taxes because they're over a certain amount. So this contract will actually cost them about $18 million because what they're doing is they're valuing it at today's rate, even with all the deferrals, at $9 million. So basically, the Mets are on their tax that they have to pay. It's going to be $18 million. They're doubling the salary, basically.
Thankfully, Steve Cohen realized that he was taking a massive risk putting out a product that could be out of it by the end of May. And they still may be, John. So as happy as we are, their outfield still is Marte, Bader, and Nimmo. That, to me, it's an inferior outfield. So they have that issue, and their starting pitching, despite the fact that they pitched well in spring training. I guess finally Quintana got hit. They have been pitching very well in spring training. So this is going to be a great test for the value of spring training. And, of course, the manager's loving a good spring training because he doesn't have to hear about it. Because, of course, people would be talking about it if they were losing games. So it is really going to be interesting. So for new managers, maybe there is some importance to really walking off that field at the end, shaking hands. But let's face it, they still have those issues in the outfield. Their pitching staff is very, I think, weak. I guess we're going to have to do the under/over today on the Mets because the season's technically going to start before we talk again, right, John?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple of moves that the Mets had to make in order because they still have to make one more cut. So Bickford, your man Bickford was released. Fujinami, because he has options, I knew they were going to send him down. I knew
They did,
because he has an option. I wouldn't be surprised if Stewart went down too as a last cut because they want more pitching to hang around because there's really 2 relief spots that are open.
Well, how many pitchers do they have right now?
Say again?
How many pitchers do they have on the roster?
Right now, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They have to take one more out. One more.
Sorry, what was the total number of pitchers? I'm sorry. You said 9? I'm sorry, I was looking.
No, I'm sorry. Hold on. No, more than that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's got to be more, right?
It's 14. Sorry, 14.
14?
14.
Modern baseball. I know they have 26 guys in the roster now, but 14 pitchers.
They have to reduce that by 1. They have to get it down to 13. 13.
13.
Yeah.
What's the over/under on the amount of pitchers pitched for the Mets? Last year, if you over 50 and you bet it, you won probably. I don't know how many pitchers they had.
It was incredible how many.
All right, John. So for Baseball with Bouk, I'm interrupting Baseball with Bouk temporarily because we have to be on the record. Baseball is starting way too early for the Bouk and Zoobie show. So we'll do just the Mets because we didn't have time really to look at the other teams. The under/over on the Mets, and I guess we should do the Yankees. We'll do the Yankees too. 81.5. Do you want to go first or you want me to go first? I will go first if you want. That's your call.
I'll go first.
All right. What do you got?
I'm saying over.
Okay.
86 wins.
Well, okay. So you're going over.
I'm going over. I'm saying they're going to win 86.
86.
Can I explain why I'm going to 86, or do you want to give?
No. I want you to explain it.
Okay. So I've been watching them, as you know. I've been watching the pitchers very, very closely in spring training. It looks like Severino has straightened himself out. He looks awesome. He looks great. I like what Tyler McGill has been doing. I think he's going to be fine. Another guy who looked really good, is Manaea. First of all, I was laughing because my wife was actually watching the game with me yesterday, and she remembered him having all that hair and beard and all that stuff, and she goes, "Who's that guy?" I said, "That's the guy that shaved off all his hair and his beard." She goes, "He looks like a totally different person."
Sure.
I said, "I don't know. I mean, he definitely does look like a totally different, but he looks really good." The ones that I'm a little concerned about that are not very consistent is Quintana because he's a soft tosser, and Hauser. Hauser is, like I said, he's more like a guy that has to have a good infield behind him. If we get Senga back anytime before June, I'll be happy. I mean, they're saying he's gonna start pitching in the next couple of days. It's gonna take him about a month to get ready, so we figure we'll have him in May.
All right.
With that pitching staff, and I'm going to mention Senga, Manaea, McGill, and Severino. I'm really putting out Quintana and Hauser for now because I don't have that much
part of the rotation.
Right. I think they're good enough to be on the edge of a wild card. On the edge, I think they're pitching. Their bullpen, I think, is pretty good. I don't know what we're going to get out of Drew Smith at all, But Diekman he looks like a really good reliever. Raley is fine. Ottavino's Ottavino. Diaz looks great. Lopez even looks great. The other two guys that are going to make this team, again, these are innings eaters. If you need them on a blowout, they're probably going to take Tonkin, who was with the Braves last year. And the last spot is either going to go to Foley or Ramirez. I would take Ramirez. Ramirez, I think, is a better shot than Foley. I think Foley always gets injured all the time.
Short? Isn't there a kid named Short? He just lost his grandfather, like our grandmother, the day he found out he made the roster. He's a pitcher. I thought his name was...
No, he's an infielder.
Oh, he's an infielder. Oh, my apologies.
Yeah, infielder.
Not one of the 14 pitchers. Okay, he's one
No.
So, John, it's a good segue to my selection because I'm going under 81.5 for the Mets, and that's one of the reasons why. Because there's a guy that we don't even know. I didn't even know he's an infielder is making the team, backup infielder, and I still think their outfield's a huge problem, and I think their starting pitching is unproven. And I'll give you credit. You obviously are watching, and I hope you're right. Please, I don't want to be right with my prediction, folks. Diaz is definitely huge coming back. That's the one thing that scares me because he's that dominating. That they could be a 500 team. I'm going for the Met implosion. I'm going for the fans start getting nuts because Pete Alonso is not going to re-sign. I hate to say I sound like the media here, John, but maybe we are part of media now a little bit. I'm going under with the New York Mets. All right, let's head to the Yankees. I just looked the number up. This number to me, I'll go first on this one.
Okay.
1.5.
How much?
91.5.
Wow.
So, that's what I saw. I'm going under. And we all know why. And you talk about it all the time. Lack of pitching.
Oof.
Now with Cole possibly could be out for the year. Let's face it. We have no idea. So knowing that information that Cole could be out a long time. Let's face it. When they put it on the books, he's out for a month or two up front. You know it's 2 to 3 months. I'm not saying he can't come back. He definitely can. But him coming back, okay, halfway through could keep them under 91.5. What do you got, Yankees?
Wow, that 91.5 with no pitching. Oof, they're going to have to do a lot of slugging this year if they're going to get to that number. Wow. I mean, because if you look at their rotation without Cole, you have Cortez, who didn't have a good year.
He's pitching.
Rodon, who's a head case. Marcus Stroman, we've spoken about. If his sinker doesn't sink, that's going to be a home run bonanza. Clark Schmidt actually is a pretty good pitcher for them. I think he's going to do well. And then they have this kid. They pronounce it differently than what I'm going to say. It's Luis Gil. It's Gil, but they pronounce it some other way.
Okay.
He actually looked. I've actually seen him pitch twice. He's looked really good. So, I mean, there is some hope with the younger guys, but the older guys, wow. I'm going to go under.
You're going
under.
Say,
if they get 89 to 90 wins, again, this is a big if. If Cole comes back, then they could go over 91. But it sounds like he's not coming back until at least June. And if that.
Great. So this is actually, I hope the audience out there, they want to participate. You know, people ask, can I call in? I mean, we get call in. You know, there's no phone number here. We're taping our shows and they're produced. But the comment section on YouTube, right, John? Put your comments. Let's see some people put their numbers on the record, right? So it's 81.5 Mets, 91.5 Yankees, right, John? Let's put it out there to I know you got some followers out there who, you know, paying attention to baseball book. Tell them to show up in the comments, folks. There's a challenge to the folks out there. The people who want to get on the record, you can put your name, put your totals. Oh, so you heard what we say? I want to hear some comments. So it's a perfect way to get our comment section going, John.
Now, who is your pick? And, you know, and I'll go over through some transactions that were done.
Okay.
Who's your pick to win the World Series?
Oh, we're going to make World Series picks. Wow. That is That is a tough game to play, right? So without even wow. So I'm gonna go Orioles and Dodgers. Dodgers win the World Series.
Okay, I'm going with the Astros. Even though the Orioles are a good team, I think the Astros are better. I mean, if you look at the Astros, they have a fantastic lineup. They have pitchers returning. They have some. I mean, the starting five is. I mean, they're excellent starting
So,
five, and that's
so the,
and Justin Verlander and was it what's his name, Arquido, are
right.
both on the injured reserve list for a little while. Once they get those guys back, I mean, you know, they're not even counting in Luis Garcia, who's coming back. I think he's coming back in June or July, and then Lance McCullers is coming back as well. I mean, they're stacked, the Astros. The National League, I think the Dodgers are going to have problems with their pitching. I actually think they're going to have problems with their pitching
Okay, well,
because you know,
don't bet.
and it's really between the Braves. As far as I'm concerned, I know I picked the Braves last year. The Braves
Had a good year.
really should be in there. I mean, if Chris Sale continues to pitch the way he did during spring training, and you got Strider, who looked great last year, and Max Fried, and then, you know, Charlie Morton, even though he's freaking an old man and, you know, a senior citizen, he's been pitching well. And then they picked up this guy Lopez. You know what? I'm going to go with the Braves, and I think that the Braves will win the World Series.
You're going with the Braves over the Astros. I went Dodgers.
Yeah. The reason why I'm not picking the Dodgers.
This is chalk, right? I mean, if I didn't look at the odds, but these are top teams. There's no question, right? Those are four of the top teams. So it's not like we didn't really go out on a limb, I think, right?
I mean, you know, like I said, when I look at the Dodgers, if Yamamoto pitches well, if Glasnow doesn't hurt his arm, yeah, they have Paxton as part of their starting staff. Walker Buehler. I mean, there's a lot of ifs with their starting pitcher. I mean, their lineup is a killer lineup.
Well, right, but I'm saying they're still one of the top teams in the league. That's my point.
Yeah, no. By the way, what's the over/under for the Braves and the Dodgers?
It's going to be over 100, right?
It should be.
We'll check it on. So, what else you want to talk about?
Yeah, just a couple of transactions. So, as I said, Bickford was released from the Mets. Fujinami sent down to the minors. Vientos was sent down. As expected, Ji-Man Choi decided he's going to stay in the minors. He had the right to ask for his release. He decided to go to AAA. Same thing with Jose Iglesias. Luke Voigt was released. Austin Adams, who the Mets had purchased, actually sent him to the Oakland A's. They got some money for him to replace our good friend Trevor Gott, who needs Tommy John surgery.
I'm sorry. I don't want to laugh about guy getting Tommy.
You feel sorry for the A's. They signed him to a guaranteed deal before in the wintertime.
Here we go. I got the over.
You should know better.
I got the numbers here. All right. So again, folks, there are odds involved. So sometimes it's tilted a little bit. So Braves is 101.5, and the Dodgers are 103.5. So, John,
I'm saying Braves definitely over, Dodgers under.
Okay. Well, all right. We're going to have to put this episode out there that, we have to mark it to go back and make sure. We're not going to go through every team, but there's some tidbits for people who maybe want to place a bet. If you want to place a bet, you should probably find Otani's interpreter, because you have a very good chance of winning money if that guy's betting with you. So
God.
I think we should probably mention that.
My rant. in my
Is
rant.
that it? So it's time. I almost stole your thunder, John. It's perfect timing, though. It's time for the rant of the week.
Thanks, Paul. So, for the gamblers out there, this has not been a very good week for the NBA and for Major League Baseball. Listen, I don't want to sound like I'm sermonizing here and saying how bad gambling is for people, and we always make fun of all the ads that keep running all day long, and then they have in little letters, if you have a gambling problem, you can barely see the number to call. It's infiltrating into sports now. I'll give you a couple of examples. So Bernie Bickerstaff, who is the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, has said, and he said it just this past week, that he is being threatened now by gamblers because his team is not covering the spread. When he starts, and we're talking about games that they pretty much have won. He takes the players out, and they don't cover the spread. He says he's been threatened by gamblers. Now we have a new one. Jonte Porter with the Toronto Raptors is now being investigated because they have something called, oh God, what do they call it? There's a terminology in gambling where, you could bet how many 3-pointers someone makes and
prop bets, prop.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for, the word. So
right.
In two particular games where there was heavy betting on the props for Porter, he took himself out of a game 4 minutes into the game for an unspecified illness, and he took himself out of a game after 3 minutes with some type of, it's almost like the dry eye syndrome, okay? Something that wasn't apparent. DraftKings has reported back to the NBA that they lost so much money on those props with Jonte Porter that they wanted investigated. They lost millions of dollars. So now, here we go with all the gambling. And now, the biggest BS story of the week is with Ohtani. You have got to be kidding me. I know when $5 is missing from my account. He's not going to know when $4.5 million is missing from his account. He has no whereabouts. Meanwhile, his interpreter blurted out, well, he helped me out pay $4.5 million worth of gambling debts. I believe that story more than Ohtani saying, I don't know where my money went. This is going to be a all-season investigation, which nothing will happen because you know that they want to protect baseball's image. And even Pete Rose says, I wish I had an interpreter. I would have never been found guilty of gambling. I'm telling you, Ohtani either is gambling or he has definitely paid the money for that man, for his interpreter. This is a complete BS lie that's going on. They're trying to turn it around and say, oh, the poor little Japanese player, the clean-cut guy from Japan, the superstar of Major League Baseball. BS, 100%. As someone who was in PR with the New York Mets, we used to make up stories like this all day long. I could go right through this one. This wasn't even close. This wasn't even close. They have to do a better job. Just admit you paid it, take your lumps, and that's the end of it. No, this is going to be going on all year, and I want to see how they're going to sweep this under the rug now.
Well, if the cover-up is always worse than the crime, it always happens. It's the same thing. There's no doubt that people who lose a lot of money like that have a lot of money. It makes sense that it's him as opposed to the interpreter getting in the hole that deep. Okay, couple $100,000 he gets in the hole, I could see. The interpreter gets in the hole $4 million, and not to mention who's taking the other side of that, the credit involved. They know Otani's got the cash, as opposed to the interpreter who doesn't. Is it legalized gambling? Obviously, gambling is legal in certain states, right? Are they going to?
Not legal in California. It's not legal in California.
But they can go to Vegas. They can go to Nevada, right? So they can easily. LA is not that far from Vegas, so they just it's obvious what it is. It's obvious what you said. I'm glad you said it. It's a great rant. It's something that really needs to be talked about. People don't get it. So I'm actually from the trading business, derivatives, right? That's what I do, involved in a lot of different aspects of derivatives, which are leverage investing, we'll call it, to be nice. And there are speculators who speculate, right? People they want to call them gamblers and call them whatever they want. You can get into deep holes if you don't know what you're doing. And because of the proliferation of, that's the wrong word, can't even pronounce it, of gambling and in-game gambling, and there's so much, people have time, it's easy to do, unfortunately, especially the younger generation who don't have a lot of money. People are going to take advantage of people like this. And, do you think DraftKings or FanDuel or any of these sites really care about what happens to people? They don't care. So buyer beware when it comes to gambling.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because, like you said, they're putting it on your phone. I mean, they're making it too easy. I mean, when you have Kevin Hart and all these basketball players and Jimmy Fox, or not Jimmy Fox, what's his name?
Jamie Foxx?
Jamie Foxx. I call him Jimmy Foxx, the baseball player. Jamie Foxx. You have all these stars, these players, and who's watching these games? Younger people our age, but even younger people, especially the NBA. And now they're saying on NBA telecasts, you're gonna be able to bet in game with it on the TV. Actually, what you can bet on next year. I was like, this is ridiculous. You're making an entire generation of gambling. I'm going to use the word degenerates. I'm sorry, because they're going to end up using their entire paychecks. They're not going to have any money, not going to be able to support their families, and they're starting them off really young. I mean, look what's happening in basketball, especially this guy, Jonte Porter.
That's bad.
He don't be surprised if this kid never sees a basketball court again once this investigation's over and they find out that he was doing this on purpose, because he actually they actually dug into his background, and he's one of these people that's giving crypto advice, and a basketball player giving advice on crypto and all. That's great. You're really concentrating on your basketball skills. I knew this was going to happen. We both knew this was going to happen. And I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but gambling is in moderation, but really not for the young people, and really not for people who can't control themselves. It's not a good thing in sports. It's not good. It's not good. We're already seeing it. And Paul and I have seen that. We've seen a lot of questionable calls this year in the NFL, the NBA, really, really questionable calls. And in the back of your mind, you're saying,
right,
what's going on behind the scenes? Why should that be? Why can't we just enjoy the games and the competition in the games? And that's my rant.
Yeah, you're an old man, John. That's it. So great rant. It's a subject we definitely should talk about. Not be afraid to talk about it. Not that, again, like you said, we're not like anti-gambler, but the point is that people are getting addicted to gambling and screwing up their lives, and it's no way to live. And that's the problem with gambling, because that's all you care about is the next. It's like being a drug addict, unfortunately.
Yep.
So anyway, it's kind of a sad way to close. And also, we should mention the terrible bridge collapse, the Key Bridge in Baltimore, a bridge that I've been over many times. You have been over many times. We're old enough to know before they built the other tunnel, the McHenry Tunnel in Baltimore, you took the Key Bridge out of necessity. So we definitely want who unfortunately passed away. John told me, we talked about this before the show, that miraculously they were able to keep people off the bridge. So unfortunately, there were just workers on the bridge that got killed. So I know we're actually talking about it, right, John, when it happened. So my friends all down there, I hope everybody's okay, and I really feel bad for all the people, and their families lost lives.
Yeah, it hasn't actually been a great week for Baltimore. Peter Angelos, the owner of the Orioles, passed away, and he was, a very big attorney. Bought the Orioles in the early '90s from the Jacobs family. Ironically, they're going to be approved this week, the sale of the Orioles. So yeah, it's sad what happened in Baltimore. I mean, that's they were actually lucky enough to find two. They found two survivors even after that boat hit the bridge. Two people actually survived off of that with the bridge collapsing, which is a miracle. I don't know how that happened, but
well, hopefully they can recover. So anyway, our hearts go out to the people of Baltimore, and so John, we got more. That's it. We're just adding on a sad note. I guess we should mention Happy Easter out there, and for because John and I just both happen to be from the Greek Orthodox religion. Just so people know, Easter, the Greek Easter, is like sometime in May this year. That's another story. Maybe we'll talk about on. Maybe we'll have Father K back, and he can give us a little history that. The Easter is supposed to follow Passover, so the Catholics have it wrong and the Greek Orthodox have it right. Anyway, but happy Easter all to my loving Christian friends, the Catholic friends, and my wife and family. Happy Easter, everybody!
Yeah, happy Easter, everyone. And like I said, we're in May this year. But the good thing is next year, everyone is all together. Passover, Greek Easter, and the rest of the Christian Easters are the same next year.
All right. Something to look forward to in 2025. So hopefully we get some championships in 2024. So John, say goodbye and thank everybody, and we'll see everybody next week.
All right. So as always, thank you to our producer. Thank God he's back from Europe, Zach Zubulake, and to our loyal listeners and viewers. Keep the feedback coming, and like Paul says, keep the comments coming. Also, thanks to our community partners, Ronald McDonald House Kids and Seats and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. We'll see you next week. Let's go Mets.